The sky above Aurelax never truly darkened. 3 moons and a binary star system kept the planet in a perpetual state of twilight, casting long purple shadows across the ancient Colosseum that dominated the capital city's skyline. Locals called it the Luminous Arena, a name that belied its bloody purpose. Reeve Calder stared through the energy barrier of his holding cell, watching alien spectators file into the vast arena. Their excited chatter in a dozen different languages filtered through the barrier as a dissonant hum. He flexed his hands, feeling the raw scrapes across his knuckles from yesterday's training session. "First time?" asked a gravelly voice from the cell opposite. Reeve turned to see a hulking figure with mottled green skin and bony ridges where eyebrows should have been. One of the Marnathi, a warrior species from the Outer Rim. This one was missing an arm, replaced by a crude mechanical prosthetic that sparked occasionally. "First time in an arena?" Reeve clarified, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "No. First time fighting alien gladiators for the entertainment of the galactic elite?" "Yeah, that's new." The Marnathi's expression was unreadable, but there was something like respect in her yellow eyes. "I'm Seelan. You're the human they captured in the Viridian raid." Reeve nodded once. 3 weeks ago, he'd been part of an Earth Coalition recon team scouting an abandoned outpost. Or supposedly abandoned. The ambush had been swift and professional. His team was dead, and he was here, another exotic specimen for the Luminous Arena. "The matches start soon," Seelan said. "First day is always the culling. They pair the new ones against each other. Winners advance. Losers." She made a cutting motion across her throat. "And if I refuse to fight?" Reeve asked. Seelan's laugh was like stones grinding together. "Then you die anyway. But slowly. For the crowd's pleasure. At least in combat, there's honor." Reeve said nothing. 20 years as a Marine had taught him that honor rarely had a place on the battlefield. Survival did. A shrill tone echoed through the cells. The energy barriers flickered and disappeared. Armed guards, tall, willowy aliens with 4 arms and carapace-like skin, gestured with electrified staffs, herding the prisoners toward a large antechamber. "Remember, human," Seelan whispered as they were pushed forward. "In the arena, it's not about who's strongest, it's about who refuses to break." The words followed Reeve as he was separated from the group, directed down a narrow corridor lit by pulsing blue lights. At the end, a circular platform waited. As he stepped onto it, it began to rise. Light blinded him temporarily as he emerged into the arena. The roar of the crowd hit him like a physical force, thousands of alien voices raised in bloodthirsty anticipation. When his vision cleared, Reeve saw that he stood in a circular pit about 50 meters across. The floor was covered in fine red sand that sparkled oddly in the light. Across from him stood another prisoner, a tall, 4-armed being with iridescent scales and a serpentine lower body. Its eyes were black pools, and when it opened its mouth, Reeve saw rows of needle-like teeth. Above them, a disembodied voice boomed through the stadium, speaking first in an alien language, then translating to Earth Standard. "Spectators of the Luminous Arena, today we present the first trial of new combatants. Behold the Serpent of Altair, 4th versus the Earthling Warrior." The crowd's roar intensified. Reeve remained motionless, assessing his opponent, who hissed and bared those formidable teeth. "The rules are simple," the announcer continued. "Combat ends with surrender or death. Weapons will appear throughout the arena. Begin." The serpent being didn't hesitate. It lunged forward with surprising speed, all 4 arms extended with claws bared. Reeve sidestepped, letting his military training take over. 20 years of combat had honed his reflexes to near superhuman levels, even without the genetic enhancements most other species seemed to possess. As he dodged, Reeve noticed small platforms rising from the arena floor, each bearing a different weapon. The nearest held what looked like a curved blade, similar to a machete. The serpent circled him, more cautious now. "You move well for prey," it hissed in broken Earth standard. Reeve didn't respond. He was calculating distances, angles, watching how his opponent moved. The serpent favored its left side slightly. An old injury, perhaps. When it attacked again, Reeve was ready. He rolled under the clawed strike, came up near the weapon platform, and grabbed the blade. The serpent recovered quickly, coiling its lower body to spring. The crowd was cheering wildly now, anticipating first blood. Reeve knew what they wanted, what the serpent expected. A clash of blades and claws, a dance of death ending in someone's entrails spilled across the sparkling sand. Instead, Reeve dropped the blade. A confused murmur ran through the audience. The serpent paused, black eyes narrowing in suspicion. "I won't kill you," Reeve said, loudly, making sure his words carried. "I won't fight to the death for their entertainment." The serpent hissed, clearly confused. "Then you die." It launched itself at him, faster than before. Reeve ducked the first 2 arms, but caught a glancing blow from the third that opened a cut along his cheek. He staggered back, tasting blood. The crowd was in an uproar now, some cheering the serpent, others booing Reeve's refusal to fight properly. The serpent pressed its advantage, driving Reeve back toward the arena wall. When it lunged again, Reeve was ready. He sidestepped at the last moment, grabbed one of the serpent's arms, and used its momentum to slam it into the wall. The impact was hard enough to stun it momentarily. Reeve could have finished it then, a strike to the throat, a snap of the neck. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the kill. Instead, Reeve stepped back. "Yield," he said. "You're injured. There's no need for either of us to die." The serpent struggled to rise, clearly dazed. Black blood oozed from a wound on its head. It looked at Reeve with something like confusion, then anger. "Kill me," it demanded. "It is the way." "Not my way," Reeve replied. Before the serpent could respond, a bolt of energy struck it from above. It convulsed once, then lay still, smoke rising from its scales. The crowd erupted in boos and shouts of disapproval. The announcer's voice returned, tinged with annoyance. "The Earthling refuses to complete his victory. This displeases the arena. He will face punishment in his next match." Guards appeared around the edge of the pit. One jabbed Reeve with an electrified staff, sending him to his knees in pain. As they dragged him away, Reeve caught sight of a private viewing box high above the arena floor. A figure stood there, watching him with an intensity that Reeve could feel even at this distance. Tall and powerfully built, with grayish skin and elaborate armor that seemed to pulse with internal light, even without being told. Reeve knew who it was, Kajul, the undefeated champion of the luminous arena. Their eyes met for a brief moment across the distance. Then Reeve was pulled from the arena, back into the darkness below. In his cell, Reeve dabbed at the cut on his cheek with a piece of cloth torn from his sleeve. They'd given him no medical attention. Of course, that wasn't the arena's way. "You're either very brave or very stupid," Seelin said from her cell. She had fought after him, dispatching her opponent efficiently, but not cruelly. The crowd had approved. Maybe both, Reeve admitted. What happened to the serpent? Dead, Seelan replied flatly. The arena AI decided its failure was unacceptable. You should have killed it quickly, given it an honorable death. Reeve shook his head. There's no honor in killing for entertainment, says the soldier, Seelan observed. I killed in war, Reeve countered. Not always for good reasons, I'll admit, but never for sport. Seelan was silent for a moment. You've made a dangerous enemy today. The arena? Kajul, she corrected. He was watching you. He doesn't like anomalies, and you, human, are definitely an anomaly. Reeve remembered those cold eyes staring down at him. Tell me about him. Seelan touched her mechanical arm unconsciously. 200 years undefeated. A genetic masterpiece from the Brelac system. They say he can't feel pain, can't be wounded. I faced him once. She raised her prosthetic. I was lucky to only lose an arm. Everyone can be defeated, Reeve said quietly. Seelan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Not him. They say the nobles have placed wagers on who will finally draw his blood. No one ever has. Before Reeve could respond, the corridor outside their cells filled with movement. Guards approached, accompanied by a tall, slender alien in elaborate robes, clearly someone of importance. The energy barrier of Reeve's cell disappeared. The robed alien stepped forward, regarding Reeve with multifaceted eyes that reflected his image back at him, like mirrors. Interesting specimen, it said in perfect Earth standard. You have caused quite a stir. Human. The nobles are most intrigued by your ethical stance. Reeve stood, facing the alien directly. And you are? I am Xylith, chief curator of the Luminous Arena. I arrange the matches, balance the spectacle with the science. It gestured with long, delicate fingers. You present an interesting challenge. Physically, you are unremarkable by arena standards. No genetic enhancements, no cybernetic augmentations. Yet your refusal to kill has made you noteworthy. Glad to entertain, Reeve said dryly. Xylith's mouth parts twitched in what might have been amusement. Indeed, so noteworthy, in fact, that we have received a special request. Kajul himself wishes to face you in combat. From her cell. Seelan made a strangled sound of disbelief. Reeve kept his expression neutral. Isn't that usually reserved for champions? He asked. Usually, yes, Xylith agreed. But Kajul is interested in your species' supposed resilience. He wishes to test it personally. And if I refuse? Xylith's eyes flickered with colored light. Refuse the honor of facing the champion? Impossible! But fear not, you will not face him immediately. First, you must prove yourself worthy through a series of trials. Survive those, and you will earn your death at the hands of the greatest warrior the galaxy has ever known. How generous, Reeve murmured. Indeed, Xylith said, missing or ignoring the sarcasm. Your first real trial begins tomorrow. I suggest you rest. It turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and human? Tomorrow's opponent will not be so easily spared. The nobles expect blood. See that you provide it. After Xylith left, silence fell between Reeve and Seelan. Well, she finally said, you've certainly made an impression. Reeve sat back on his hard bunk, mind racing through possibilities. Escape plans, tactics. Tell me everything you know about Kajul, he said. And about this arena. There has to be a way out. Seelan moved closer to the barrier between their cells. There is no way out. Human. Not alive, anyway. But if you're determined to face the champion, you'll need more than courage. You'll need a miracle. As darkness finally fell in the cells beneath the luminous arena, Reeve Calder closed his eyes. But sleep was far away, somewhere above. A being that had never known defeat was waiting for him. And Reeve knew that to survive, he would need to become something he had spent years trying to leave behind, a perfect weapon. The problem was, he wasn't sure he could do that and still remain human. And the next week passed in a blur of violence and pain. Each day, Reeve was forced into the arena to face increasingly dangerous opponents. Each day, he survived, but not without cost. His third match left him with 3 broken ribs from a Chronos Berserker's hammer blow. His fifth match ended with a deep gash across his back from a Vespari assassin's poison blade. The arena's medical droids did just enough to keep him alive and fighting, leaving the wounds to heal naturally. Through it all, Reeve refused to kill. He would disable his opponents, force them to yield, but never deliver the final blow that the crowd increasingly demanded. This earned him the hatred of many spectators, but also, strangely, the fascination of others. "You've become something of a novelty," Seelan told him after his 7th match, a brutal contest against twin fighters from the gas giants of Orpheon. Reeve had managed to turn them against each other, resulting in one knocking the other unconscious. "The nobles are calling you the Unbroken." Reeve winced as he pressed a cold compress against his swollen eye. "Not for lack of trying," he muttered. Every part of his body ached. Without advanced medical treatment, he was healing slowly, carrying the accumulated damage of each fight into the next one. "The Arena Directorate is offering enhancements," Seelan said cautiously. "Cybernetic implants, genetic modifications. Many fighters accept them after proving their base worth." Reeve shook his head. "No. If I let them change me, they win. I fight as a human or not at all." Seelan sighed. "Your stubborn pride will get you killed, especially now. Haven't you heard? Your next opponent is Vrex." Reeve didn't recognize the name, but the way Seelan said it made his stomach tighten. "I take it Vrex is special?" "Kajul's second," Seelan explained. "A Nyx-breed warrior. They're created specifically for arena combat, heightened aggression, redundant organ systems, regenerative capabilities. Vrex has killed over 300 opponents." "Sounds charming," Reeve said. "Why not just throw me to Kajul directly?" That's not how it works," Seelan replied. "The path to the champion is through his lieutenants. Vrex is the first. If, by some miracle, you survive, there would be 2 more before Kajul would deign to face you." Reeve leaned back against the wall of his cell, trying to find a position that didn't aggravate some injury. "Tell me about these Nyx-breed warriors. Weaknesses?" Seelan laughed humorlessly. "They're designed not to have weaknesses, but—" She hesitated. "They're arrogant, overconfident, and they rely heavily on their regeneration. If you could somehow overwhelm that capacity, deal more damage than they can heal at once, you might have a chance." "Good to know," Reeve said, though privately he wondered how he was supposed to accomplish that. His body was already a catalog of injuries, while his opponent would enter the arena fresh and at full strength. "There's something else," Seelan added, her voice dropping. "I've heard rumors from the other cells. The nobles are placing unprecedented wagers on your match. Some are even betting that you'll survive." "Nice to have fans," Reeve said dryly. "It's more than that," Seelan insisted. "The arena runs on credits and spectacle. If enough of the powerful have a financial interest in your survival." Reeve understood. They might intervene if things go badly. Seelan nodded. "Just don't count on it. The bloodlust of the crowd usually wins out over any individual noble's wager. Reeve closed his eyes, feeling the weight of fatigue pressing down on him. Tomorrow, he would face a genetically engineered killing machine, with nothing but his battered human body and military training to rely on. "Get some rest," Seelin advised. "And Reeve, if it comes down to killing Rex or being killed, choose survival. There's no shame in it." Reeve didn't answer. As exhaustion finally pulled him into sleep, his dreams were filled with the faces of enemies he had killed during his military career, and now they all wore Rex's unknown features. The next morning, the guards came earlier than usual. They shoved a nutrient pack through the barrier for Reeve to consume, then stood watching impassively as he ate. "Big day," one of them commented in broken Earth Standard. "Many bets, many credits." Reeve said nothing, focusing on getting calories into his body. He would need every ounce of energy today. As they led him through the now familiar corridors toward the arena, Reeve was surprised when they took a different turn. This hallway was better lit, with polished stone walls instead of rough concrete. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Special match," the guard grunted. "Special arena." They emerged into a preparation chamber far more elaborate than the bare antechamber he was used to. The walls were lined with weapon racks and armor stands. A medical droid hovered in one corner. Xylith was waiting, hands clasped behind its back. "Ah, the human anomaly arrives. Today is a significant day for you." "So I've heard," Reeve said, eyeing the weapons along the wall. Many were unfamiliar to him, clearly designed for alien physiologies, but some were recognizable. Swords, spears, axes. "You may select one weapon," Xylith informed him. "Choose carefully. Rex favors a dual-blade fighting style, but is proficient with all forms of combat." Reeve walked slowly along the rack, considering his options. Most of the weapons were too heavy or unwieldy for his human strength. Finally, he selected a simple metal staff, about 5 feet long with balanced weight. Xylith's eyes flickered with colored light. Amusement, perhaps. A defensive choice. Interesting. "What can you tell me about this special arena?" Reeve asked, testing the staff's weight and balance. "The Obsidian Circle," Xylith replied. "Reserved for significant matches. Smaller than the main arena, bringing the audience closer to the action. More intimate, more intense." "Sounds cozy," Reeve muttered. "The medical droid will attend to your most serious injuries before the match." Xylith continued, gesturing to the hovering machine. "We want you at, let's say 70% capacity. Enough to make it sporting, but not enough to truly threaten Rex. Your confidence is touching. It is not confidence, human. It is statistical probability." Xylith moved toward the exit. "The match begins in 20 minutes. The droid will guide you to the entry point when it is time." After Xylith left, the medical droid approached Reeve, scanning his body with a blue light. Multiple contusions, hairline fracture of the left radius, 3 broken ribs, laceration to the posterior thorax partially healed, mild concussion. It recited in a flat, mechanical voice. Administering targeted regeneration and pain management. Cool mist sprayed from its appendages, settling on Reeve's worst injuries. Almost immediately, the constant pain that had become his companion began to recede. He could feel the broken ribs knitting together, the gash on his back closing properly. Full healing inadvisable. The droid stated, "Arena protocols specify partial treatment only." "Of course they do," Reeve said. He rolled his shoulders, testing his improved range of motion. He felt better than he had in days, though still far from his best. It would have to be enough. The droid retreated to its corner. Reeve spent the remaining time stretching carefully, reacquainting himself with his body's capabilities and limitations. He also examined the staff more thoroughly, looking for weaknesses or design features he might exploit. It was simple but well crafted, made of some metal alloy he didn't recognize. Lighter than it looked, but with enough mass to deliver significant impact. Not the most lethal weapon available, but versatile and well suited to his fighting style. When the 20 minutes were up, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a short corridor bathed in pulsing red light. The droid gestured toward it. Proceed to the arena. Match commences in 60 seconds. Reeve took a deep breath, centered himself, and walked forward, staff in hand. The corridor ended at a circular platform similar to the one in the main arena. As it began to rise, Reeve heard the crowd above, smaller than the great arena's audience, but somehow more focused, more intent. The platform locked into place, and Reeve stepped off into the obsidian circle. The name was literal. The floor was polished black stone that reflected the light like water, making depth perception tricky. The arena was perhaps 30 meters across, ringed by tiered seating that rose steeply on all sides. Every seat appeared to be filled with richly dressed aliens of various species. These were the elite of the galaxy. Come to watch up close as two beings tried to destroy each other. Directly across from Reeve, another platform rose. Standing upon it was Rex. Reeve had faced intimidating opponents before, but Rex was something else entirely. Nearly 7 feet tall, with sickly pale skin stretched taut over powerful muscles. No hair, no visible ears, just smooth skin rising to a pointed crown. The eyes were what caught Reeve's attention, solid black, but with tiny pinpricks of red light deep within, like distant stars. Rex wore minimal armor, just shoulder plates and a chest harness that left the muscled torso mostly exposed. In each hand, it held a curved blade about 2 feet long. As Rex stepped off the platform, the blades began to glow with a dull red energy. Noble patrons of the Obsidian Circle. The announcer's voice was closer here, more intimate than in the great arena. Today we present a special contest. The human anomaly, undefeated through 7 trials, faces Rex, second only to the great champion himself. The crowd responded with appreciative murmurs rather than roars. These spectators were more restrained than the general audience, but no less bloodthirsty. The rules of the Obsidian Circle are absolute. Combat continues until surrender or death. There is no time limit, no intervention. 2 enter, 1 leaves. Reeve kept his eyes on Rex, who had begun to move along the edge of the arena with predatory grace. The Nyx-breed warrior hadn't spoken, hadn't acknowledged Reeve in any way. It simply watched, those pinprick eyes tracking Reeve's every movement. Begin! Rex moved with shocking speed, covering the distance between them in a blur. The twin blades slashed in a complex pattern designed to overwhelm. Reeve barely got his staff up in time to deflect the first strike, the impact sending vibrations down his arms. He sidestepped the second blade, feeling it pass close enough to his face that he could sense the heat of its energy field. Immediately, Reeve knew he was outmatched in terms of raw speed and strength. Rex was simply faster, stronger, and armed with superior weapons. A direct confrontation would end quickly and badly. So Reeve changed tactics. Instead of trying to match Rex's aggression, he focused on defense and evasion. He used the staff to deflect rather than block, redirecting Rex's powerful strikes rather than absorbing them. He kept moving, using the entire arena, forcing Rex to pursue. For several minutes, they continued this deadly dance, Rex attacking relentlessly, Reeve evading and countering when possible. The crowd began to grow restless, expecting a quicker resolution. "Stand and fight, human." Rex finally spoke, voice surprisingly smooth for such a fearsome appearance. "Die with honor, not like prey running from a predator." "Is that what you are?" Reeve replied, circling away from another attack. "A predator? Or just a weapon pointed at whatever target your masters choose?" Rex's expression didn't change, but its attacks intensified. One blade slipped past Reeve's guard, opening a shallow cut along his arm. First blood. The crowd murmured approvingly. Reeve knew he couldn't continue this way indefinitely. Rex showed no signs of tiring, while his own enhanced stamina was being tested to its limits. He needed to change the dynamics of the fight. The next time Rex lunged, Reeve didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped into the attack, inside the optimal range of those deadly blades. Rex, surprised by the sudden change in tactics, couldn't adjust in time. Reeve drove the end of his staff into Rex's solar plexus with all his strength. The blow would have incapacitated a human. Rex merely grunted and stepped back, but there was a flash of something in those black eyes. Surprise, perhaps even respect. "First strike," Rex acknowledged. "It will be your last." The fight escalated. Rex abandoned some of its controlled precision for greater aggression, perhaps sensing that Reeve was tiring. Reeve took more hits, a slash across his thigh, a grazing cut to his shoulder. Each wound slowed him a fraction more. But he was learning Rex's patterns, the rhythms of its attacks. And he noticed something. Rex favored combinations of 3 strikes, always followed by a brief reset. It was subtle, just a momentary pause, but it was there. The next time Rex completed a 3-strike combination, Reeve was ready. As Rex reset, Reeve launched a counterattack, driving the staff upward into Rex's jaw with enough force to snap the warrior's head back. Before Rex could recover, Reeve spun and swept the staff at its legs, connecting solidly with the back of one knee. Rex stumbled, off balance for the first time. The crowd gasped collectively. Reeve pressed his advantage, landing 2 more solid strikes before Rex recovered. One blow to the ribs, another to the wrist that caused Rex to momentarily lose grip on one blade. For an instant, Reeve thought he might actually win. Then Rex's expression changed, the impassive mask replaced by something like fury. It moved with new intensity, a blur of pale skin and glowing blades. Reeve could barely track the attacks, let alone counter them. One blade sliced deeply into his left shoulder. The other caught him across the chest, cutting through his thin shirt and into the flesh beneath. Reeve staggered back, blood flowing freely now. Rex paused, watching him with those pinprick eyes. "You fought well, human, better than expected, but it ends now." Reeve knew Rex was right. He had reached his limits. His vision was starting to blur from blood loss, his reactions slowing. The staff felt impossibly heavy in his hands. But as he looked at Rex, this perfect killing machine created for others' entertainment, something hardened inside him, a refusal to submit, to break. The same stubborn core that had carried him through 2 decades of military service, through losses and horrors that would have broken many. "Not yet," Reeve said, straightening despite the pain. "Not today." He changed his grip on the staff, holding it now like a spear. It was a desperate gambit, one last effort. Rex came at him again, blades weaving their deadly pattern. Reeve didn't try to defend. Instead, he lunged forward, directly into Rex's attack, driving the staff toward the warrior's throat with every ounce of strength he had left. One of Rex's blades sliced deeply into Reeve's side. The pain was blinding, overwhelming, but the end of the staff connected, striking Rex's throat with enough force to crush a human's windpipe. Rex staggered back, dropping one blade to clutch at its throat. Black ichor leaked between its fingers. The crowd erupted in shocked exclamations. Reeve fell to one knee. Hand pressed against the wound in his side. Blood seeped between his fingers, hot and steady. He knew the injury was severe, possibly fatal without immediate treatment. Across the arena, Rex had recovered, though still obviously in pain. It regarded Reeve with those strange eyes, now burning brighter. "You hurt me," it said, voice raspy. "No one has drawn my blood in 50 years. Reeve couldn't speak. The edges of his vision were darkening. He was losing too much blood too quickly. Rex approached slowly, remaining blade held ready. Reeve couldn't rise, couldn't defend himself. This was it. The Nyx-breed warrior stood over him, blade raised for the killing blow. Reeve met those alien eyes without flinching. Then, unexpectedly, Rex lowered the weapon. "Not like this," it said. "Not while you can barely stand. Heal, recover. We will meet again, and I will kill you properly." The crowd erupted in protest. This wasn't how the Obsidian Circle worked. Combat to the death or surrender. Those were the only options. But Rex turned toward the spectators, raising its voice. "The human has earned respect. Who among you would deny the champion the right to face this warrior at full strength?" A murmur ran through the crowd. Then, from a private box near the top of the arena, a figure stood. Kajul himself, watching the proceedings with interest. The champion raised a hand, and the arena fell silent. He made a single gesture, approval. Reeve's last memory before unconsciousness claimed him was of Rex standing over him, those strange eyes regarding him with something that might have been respect. "Live, human," Rex said quietly. "Live to die another day." Reeve awoke in an unfamiliar room, not his cell, but a proper medical bay with advanced equipment. He lay on a comfortable bed, surrounded by monitoring devices that hummed softly. His wounds had been treated, not just stabilized, but properly healed. The deep gash in his side was now just a pink line of new skin. "Finally awake," said a familiar voice. Seelan sat in a chair nearby, her mechanical arm gleaming with new components. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. Reeve tried to sit up, wincing at residual soreness. "What happened? Why am I here instead of my cell?" "You've been upgraded," Seelan explained. "Your fight with Rex changed things. No one has ever wounded Rex and survived. The nobles are excited about you now." "Upgraded how?" Reeve asked suspiciously, examining his body for signs of unwanted modifications. "Relax," Seelan said. "No implants, no genetic tampering. They know that's part of your appeal, the pure human who refuses enhancement. They've just moved you to better quarters and provided actual medical care." "Out of the goodness of their hearts?" Reeve asked skeptically. Seelan laughed. "Hardly. You're an investment now. The betting pools for your next match are already at record levels." She leaned forward. "Do you understand what you've done? You've wounded one of Kajul's lieutenants. No one has done that in decades." Reeve swung his legs over the edge of the bed, testing his strength. He felt better than he had since before his capture. "And now? Now you rest, recover, and prepare." Seelan said, "Your next opponent will be Cora, Kajul's first lieutenant. She makes Rex look like a pleasure model." "Wonderful," Reeve muttered. And you? Why are you here? Seelin raised her improved mechanical arm. I've been assigned as your training partner. The Arena Directorate wants you at your best for the next match. More spectacle that way. And if I refuse to continue fighting, then all these nice accommodations disappear, and you go back to being just another disposable prisoner. Seelin stood. But I don't think you'll refuse. Not now. Why's that? Because you've seen a way forward, Seelin said. A path that might lead not just to survival, but to something more. I see it in your eyes. You're planning something. Reeve didn't confirm or deny it. The truth was, an idea had been forming in his mind since the match with Rex. A dangerous, possibly suicidal idea, but one that offered a glimmer of hope. When is the next match scheduled? He asked. 2 weeks, Seelin replied. They want you fully recovered and properly trained. Like I said, you're an investment now. Reeve nodded slowly. 2 weeks to prepare for Cora. Tell me everything about her. As Seelin began to describe the fearsome warrior who would be his next opponent, Reeve listened carefully, already mapping out strategies, weaknesses to exploit, strengths to avoid. But part of his mind was focused on the larger goal, not just surviving the next match, but finding a way to change the rules of the game entirely. The luminous arena had existed for centuries, feeding on blood and suffering. Perhaps it was time someone broke the system from within. The next 2 weeks were the most physically demanding of Reeve's life, and considering his 20 years as a Marine, that was saying something. Each day began before dawn, with hours of intense training under Seelin's brutal guidance. The Marnathi warrior pushed him to his limits and beyond, honing his reflexes, building his strength, teaching him combat techniques from a dozen different worlds. Cora was engineered for arena combat, Seelin explained as they sparred in the private training facility provided for Reeve's upgrade. She's faster than Rex, stronger, and infinitely more sadistic. She doesn't just kill her opponents, she makes them suffer first. Reeve blocked a vicious strike from Seelin's mechanical arm, the impact sending vibrations up to his shoulder. Sounds like a real charmer. Weaknesses? Arrogance, Seelin said immediately. Like most of Kajul's inner circle, she believes herself invincible, and she's impatient. If a kill takes too long, she gets frustrated, makes mistakes. So my strategy is to not die long enough for her to get sloppy, Reeve said dryly. Wonderful. Seelin attacked again, a flurry of strikes that Reeve barely managed to defend against. You wounded Rex. That's unprecedented. Cora will be wary of you at first, looking to end the fight quickly to prove herself superior. And Kajul, what's his interest in all this? Seelin's expression darkened. He watches all your training sessions through the arena's surveillance system. He's studying you, learning your techniques, your limits, preparing for when he eventually faces you himself. The thought should have been terrifying, but Reeve found it oddly encouraging. The undefeated champion, the so-called invincible god of combat, was concerned enough about a mere human to study his fighting style. That suggested vulnerability, not physical, perhaps, but psychological. Every night after training, exhausted and sore, Reeve would lie in his new quarters thinking about Kajul, not about fighting him, but about understanding him. What drove a being to 2 centuries of undefeated combat? What kind of mind existed behind those cold, calculating eyes? Midway through the 2nd week, Xylith visited Reeve's quarters, bringing with it a holographic projection of the arena where he would face Cora. The Hall of Echoes, Xylith explained as the blue light coalesced into a 3-dimensional model. An ancient structure, predating even the luminous arena itself, believed to have been a temple to forgotten gods. The virtual arena was circular like the others, but larger and more complex. Stone pillars ringed the outer edge, and the floor was inlaid with spiraling patterns that seemed to move as Reeves studied them. The acoustics are unique, Xylith continued. Sounds are amplified, distorted. Many fighters find it disorienting, a subtle psychological advantage for Korra, who has fought there many times. I assume that's intentional, Reeve commented. Xylith's mouth parts twitched in what might have been amusement. The Arena Directorate believes in creating optimal conditions for spectacle. Fairness is secondary. Of course it is, Reeve muttered. He studied the hologram more closely. These pillars, are they structural or decorative? Both, Xylith replied. They support the upper galleries where the most elite spectators will sit, but they also create natural obstacles and sight barriers within the combat zone. Reeve nodded, already formulating how he might use the environment to his advantage. Weapons. You may select one, as before. Korra favors a neural whip, a nasty device that causes pain signals to overload the victim's nervous system. Most opponents are incapacitated after a single strike. Charming, Reeve said. Any other surprises I should know about? Xylith deactivated the hologram. Only that the stakes have risen considerably. The Arena Directorate has received unprecedented interest in this match. Over 70% of available viewing access has been purchased. Even the High Council will be watching. I'm flattered, Reeve said flatly. You should be, Xylith said, apparently missing the sarcasm again. Few arena combatants ever attract such attention. Fewer still survive to enjoy it. It turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and human? Kajul has placed a substantial wager on this match. On Korra, I assume. No, Xylith said. On you. After Xylith left, Reeve sat in silence, considering this new information. Why would Kajul bet on him to defeat one of his own lieutenants? It made no strategic sense, unless the champion was playing a deeper game. The day before the match, Reeve was given complete rest. No training, no visitors except for medical droids that monitored his physical condition and administered nutrients designed to optimize his performance. That evening, as he tried to quiet his mind for sleep, the barrier to his quarters shimmered and deactivated. A tall figure stepped through, not a guard or Xylith, but Vrex. The Nyx breed warrior's throat still showed a dark bruise where Reeve's staff had connected. Those strange pinprick eyes regarded Reeve with the same intensity as in the arena. Human, Vrex said by way of greeting. Reeve stood, alert but not overtly defensive. Vrex, come to wish me luck tomorrow? Luck is for the weak. Vrex replied. I came to see the one who marked me. It touched the bruise on its throat. In 50 years of combat, no one has drawn my blood. Until you. I'll take that as a compliment, Reeve said cautiously. It is a fact, Vrex stated. As is this. Korra will not show the same. Respect I did. She will kill you, slowly and painfully. Thanks for the warning, Reeve said. But I'm harder to kill than most people expect. Vrex studied him for a long moment. Yes, that is why Kajul is interested in you. Not your skill, though you have some, but your resilience, your refusal to break. And why are you here? Really? Reeve asked. Not just to state the obvious about tomorrow. Vrex's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in those strange eyes. Perhaps curiosity. What makes a being continue fighting when defeat is certain? What purpose does it serve? It's called hope, Reeve said. "Something I suspect they engineered out of you." "Hope." Rex repeated the word as if tasting it. An irrational expectation of positive outcomes, despite evidence to the contrary. That's one definition, Reeve acknowledged. Another might be the belief that things can change, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. "And you believe things can change in the luminous arena?" Rex asked. "A system that has existed for millennia?" "Everything changes eventually," Reeve said. "Even things built to last forever." Rex was silent for a moment, those pinprick eyes studying Reeve with new intensity. "Interesting. Kajul may be right about you after all." Before Reeve could ask what that meant, Rex turned to leave. At the barrier, it paused. "Cora favors her right side and tends to overextend on her third strike with the neural whip. It is a small flaw, but it exists." Then Rex was gone, leaving Reeve to wonder about the strange encounter. Was it possible he had made an ally? Or was this some elaborate mind game orchestrated by Kajul? Either way, tomorrow would bring answers, if he survived long enough to hear them. The morning of the match, Reeve was woken early by a medical droid that administered a final round of performance-enhancing nutrients. He was then escorted to a preparation chamber similar to the one before his fight with Rex, but larger and more elaborately equipped. Weapons of every conceivable design lined the walls. Some he recognized. Others were so alien in concept that he couldn't even guess at their function. After considering his options carefully, Reeve selected a simple combat knife with a blade about 8 inches long. The grip fit his hand perfectly, the balance ideal. Sometimes the simplest weapons were the most effective. As he waited for the call to enter the arena, Reeve closed his eyes, centering himself as he had before countless military operations. He ran through mental exercises, visualizing the coming fight, preparing for various scenarios. But most importantly, he reminded himself of what he was fighting for, not just survival, but something larger. A change to a system built on suffering. "It is time," announced a mechanical voice. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a long corridor that sloped gently upward. "Proceed to the Hall of Echoes." Reeve took a deep breath, knife held loosely in his right hand, and walked forward. The corridor seemed to go on forever, each step bringing with it a strange acoustic effect, his footfalls echoing back at him with varying delays, as if the sound were bouncing through a complex maze. Finally, he emerged into the Hall of Echoes. The reality was more impressive than the hologram had suggested. Massive stone pillars rose 20 meters to a domed ceiling painted with scenes of ancient battles. The floor was polished marble, inlaid with those strange spiraling patterns that seemed to shift under his gaze. Around the circumference of the arena, tiered seating rose steeply, filled with the elite of galactic society. And directly across from him, emerging from another entrance, was Cora. She was not what Reeve had expected, where Rex was intimidating in its alienness. Cora appeared almost human at first glance, tall and athletic, with coppery skin and features that might have been considered beautiful in another context. But as she moved into the light, the illusion of humanity faded. Her eyes were solid gold, without pupils or whites. Her movements were too perfect, too fluid to be natural. And the smile that curved her lips held nothing but cruelty. In her right hand, she carried what must be the neural whip Xylith had mentioned, a slender rod about a meter long, with a glowing tip that pulsed with energy. "Noble patrons of the Hall of Echoes!" the announcer's voice boomed, distorted and multiplied by the strange acoustics until it seemed to come from everywhere at once. Today we present a contest of the highest order. The human anomaly, conqueror of Rex, faces Korra, first lieutenant to the great champion. The crowd's response was a contained roar, their excitement palpable even through their aristocratic restraint. The rules of the hall are absolute. Combat continues until surrender or death. There is no time limit, no intervention. Korra began to circle, her movements predatory and graceful. The neural whip hummed softly as she swung it in lazy arcs at her side. "I've been looking forward to this. Human," she called, her voice melodic despite the malice behind it. "Vrex has become soft, sentimental. I will remind everyone what happens to those who dare to challenge Kajul's circle." Reeve said nothing, focusing on her movements, looking for patterns, weaknesses. Remember what Vrex said, he thought. She favors her right side, overextends on the third strike. "Begin!" Korra moved with blinding speed, the neural whip extending to twice its length as she lashed out. Reeve barely dodged, feeling the energy field distort the air near his face. The whip struck a pillar behind him, leaving a scorch mark on the ancient stone. Immediately, Reeve knew this fight would be different from Vrex, where the Nyx-breed warrior had been powerful but methodical. Korra was pure aggression, her attacks coming in rapid succession with barely time to breathe between them. The neural whip was a devastating weapon. Each time it came close, Reeve could feel his skin prickle with its energy field. One direct hit would likely incapacitate him long enough for Korra to finish him off. He retreated strategically, using the pillars as cover, forcing Korra to pursue him through the complex arena. The strange acoustics worked to his advantage, making it difficult for her to pinpoint his location by sound when he was briefly out of sight. "Running already?" Korra taunted, her voice seeming to come from multiple directions at once. "I expected more from the human who marked Vrex." Reeve didn't respond to the provocation. He was watching, learning her attack patterns. Vrex had been right. She did favor her right side, and there was a slight hesitation after her third strike as she reset her stance. After several minutes of this deadly game of cat and mouse, Reeve decided to test the theory. He positioned himself near a pillar, then deliberately exposed himself to draw an attack. Korra responded instantly, the whip lashing out in a series of strikes. 1, 2, 3, and there it was, the brief moment of vulnerability as she reset. Reeve lunged forward, knife aimed at her exposed side. But Korra was faster than he anticipated. She twisted away, the knife merely grazing her arm instead of finding its target. Golden liquid, her blood, beaded along the shallow cut. Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in fury. "You dare!" she hissed, all pretense of playfulness gone. "No one draws my blood. No one." Her attacks intensified, becoming less controlled, more frenzied. The neural whip cracked and hissed as it sought Reeve, who was now fully on the defensive. One strike came perilously close, the energy field clipping his left arm. Instant agony shot through his nervous system, causing him to stumble. Korra pressed her advantage, moving in for the kill. The whip lashed out again, this time catching Reeve across the back as he tried to roll away. The pain was beyond anything he had ever experienced, every nerve ending firing simultaneously, muscles spasming uncontrollably. He crashed to the floor, the knife skittering from his grasp. Through vision, blurred by pain, he saw Korra approaching, that cruel smile widening. "Pathetic," she said, standing over him. Rex must be losing his edge if this is what wounded him. Reeve couldn't speak, couldn't move. The neural feedback from the whip had temporarily paralyzed his voluntary muscle control. He could only watch as Cora raised the weapon for another strike. "I'm going to make this last," she promised. "By the time I'm done, you'll be begging for death." The whip descended again, connecting with his chest. Fresh agony exploded through him, his back arching involuntarily. Somewhere distant, he heard the crowd murmuring in appreciation of his suffering. Cora circled him slowly, like a predator savoring its kill. "Where is your famous resilience now, human? Your unbreakable will?" Through the haze of pain, something crystallized in Reeve's mind, a clarity born of desperation. Cora was playing with him, drawing out his suffering for the crowd's entertainment. It was a mistake. Every moment she delayed was a moment for the neural feedback to dissipate, for his control to return. He focused on his right hand, willing the fingers to move. Nothing at first, then a slight twitch. Progress. Cora continued her taunting, unaware of his gradually returning mobility. "Kajul was wrong about you. You're nothing special. Just another fragile creature that bleeds and dies like all the rest." Reeve saw his knife on the floor, perhaps 2 meters away, too far to reach quickly, but not his only option. His gaze shifted to Cora's feet as she paced around him, calculating distances, timing. When she completed another circuit and was positioned just right, Reeve acted. With every ounce of returning strength, he swept his leg in a powerful arc, connecting with her ankles. Caught by surprise, Cora stumbled, momentarily off balance. It was enough. Reeve rolled, ignoring the residual pain that flared through his nervous system, and grabbed her ankle. With a sharp twist, he heard the satisfying crack of breaking bone. Cora screamed, not in pain, but in outrage. She lashed out with the whip, but her aim was compromised by her position. Reeve rolled again, coming up with his knife in hand. The crowd was on its feet now, the restrained murmurs replaced by genuine excitement. No one had ever seen Cora wounded, let alone brought down. "You're dead!" Cora snarled, regaining her footing despite the broken ankle. Her golden eyes blazed with hatred. "I'm going to peel the skin from your body while you watch." She attacked again, the neural whip singing through the air. But her injury had disrupted her timing, her patterns. Reeve was able to anticipate and evade more effectively now. And with each failed attack, Cora's fury grew, making her less precise, more reckless. Reeve waited for his moment, conserving energy, letting Cora exhaust herself with increasingly wild attacks. When it came, another overextension after a third strike, he was ready. He dodged inside the whip's reach, knife leading. This time, his aim was true. The blade sank deep into Cora's shoulder, severing tendons and muscle. The neural whip fell from suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. Cora staggered back, golden blood flowing freely now. Her expression was one of disbelief, as if the concept of being seriously wounded was entirely foreign to her. "Impossible," she whispered. Reeve didn't give her time to recover. He pressed forward, a series of precise strikes targeting vulnerable points: knee, elbow, throat, not killing blows, but disabling ones. Cora tried to defend herself, but without her weapon and with multiple injuries, she was at a severe disadvantage. Finally, Reeve caught her arm in a joint lock, forcing her to her knees. The knife rested against her throat, ready to end it. The Hall of Echoes had fallen completely silent. Not a sound from the thousands of spectators who watched in stunned disbelief as the seemingly invincible Cora knelt defeated before a mere human. "Finish it!" Cora hissed, golden eyes burning with hatred. "Claim your victory." Reeve leaned close, speaking so only she could hear. I don't want victory. I want change. Then, louder, for all to hear, I claim the right of mercy. This fight is over. A confused murmur ran through the crowd. The right of mercy was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked in modern times. It allowed a victor to spare a defeated opponent, but at a cost. The victor would forfeit any rewards or advancement that would normally come from the kill. Unprecedented, the announcer's voice boomed. The human invokes the right of mercy. By ancient law, the directorate must honor this choice. From high above, in a private viewing box, Reeve caught sight of Kajul watching intently. The champion made no movement, showed no reaction, but Reeve could feel his gaze like a physical weight. Guards entered the arena, surrounding Cora. She glared at Reeve with pure hatred as they led her away. This isn't over. Human, she spat. No one humiliates me and lives. Reeve stood alone in the center of the Hall of Echoes, knife held loosely in his blood-stained hand. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered the unexpected outcome. Others booed the denial of a killing blow. But all were talking, discussing, debating. The luminous arena thrived on spectacle, and Reeve had just provided something truly novel. As guards approached to escort him back to his quarters, Reeve looked up again at Kajul's viewing box. The champion was gone. But somehow, Reeve knew with absolute certainty, their confrontation was now inevitable. And when it came, it would change everything. The aftermath of Reeve's victory over Cora sent shockwaves through the luminous arena. For days, it was the only topic of conversation among spectators and combatants alike. The human who had not only defeated 2 of Kajul's lieutenants, but had shown mercy to the second. It was unprecedented, revolutionary even. Reeve was moved to even more luxurious quarters. His status now elevated beyond mere combatant to something approaching celebrity. Medical attention for his injuries from the neural whip was immediate and comprehensive. Within days, he was physically recovered, though the memory of that all-consuming pain lingered. Xylith visited him frequently, clearly fascinated by the human anomaly that had disrupted centuries of tradition. The arena directorate is conflicted about you, it admitted during one such visit. On one hand, you have generated unprecedented interest and revenue. On the other, your refusal to kill challenges the very foundation of the arena's purpose. Which is? Reeve asked, though he already knew the answer. Control through spectacle. Xylith replied without hesitation. The demonstration of ultimate power over life and death. When you spare an opponent, you undermine that demonstration. Maybe that's exactly the point, Reeve suggested. Xylith's multifaceted eyes reflected Reeve's image back at him. Perhaps, but be warned, such philosophy is dangerous in a place built on blood. Seelan visited too, her respect for Reeve now obvious. You've done the impossible, she told him. Defeated Cora without killing her. No one thought it could be done. What happens to her now? Reeve asked. Disgrace, Seelan replied. She'll be demoted, possibly even forced to fight in the lower arenas to regain her status. It's a fate many consider worse than death. Reeve absorbed this information thoughtfully. And what about the 3rd lieutenant? When do I face them? Seelan's expression grew serious. That's the thing. There will be no 3rd lieutenant. Kajul has demanded to face you directly. Reeve felt a chill, despite the comfortable temperature of his quarters. When? The Solstice Festival, 3 weeks from now. The greatest spectacle of the arena calendar. Millions will watch across the galaxy. Seelan hesitated. No one has ever faced Kajul with less than a full year of arena experience. It's a death sentence. Reeve. Or an opportunity, Reeve countered. Depending on how you look at it. Seelan studied him, concern evident in her yellow eyes. What are you planning? Whatever it is, it's likely to get you killed. Reeve smiled slightly. Death comes for everyone eventually. The question is whether it means something when it arrives. The 3 weeks leading up to the Solstice Festival passed in a blur of intensive preparation. Reeve trained harder than ever, pushing his human body to its absolute limits. Seelan continued as his sparring partner, but other trainers were brought in as well, specialists in various combat disciplines, experts in arena tactics. Xylith provided historical recordings of Kajul's previous matches, hundreds of them, spanning 2 centuries. Reeve spent hours studying them, looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything that might give him the slightest edge. What he found was not encouraging. Kajul's fighting style was a perfect synthesis of dozens of techniques, adapted and evolved over centuries of combat. He showed no consistent patterns to exploit, no recurring vulnerabilities. Each match was approached differently, tailored specifically to the opponent. He fights like water, Reeve observed to Seelan after reviewing yet another flawless victory. Adapting to whatever container he's placed in, and that's why he's undefeated. Seelan replied, he has no fixed style to counter, no predictable approach to prepare for. Yet Reeve continued studying, training, preparing, not because he expected to win through superior skill or strength. That was impossible against an opponent with centuries of experience and genetically engineered capabilities. No, he was preparing for something else entirely. A week before the scheduled match, Reeve received an unexpected visitor. The energy barrier to his quarters deactivated to admit a tall, powerfully built alien with mottled gray skin and elaborate cybernetic implants at the temples and spine. Not Kajul, but someone of obvious importance. I am Draven, the visitor announced without preamble. High Curator of the Arena Directorate. Reeve stood, wary but respectful. To what do I owe the honor? Draven's eyes, solid white orbs without pupils, regarded Reeve with clinical interest. Curiosity. I wish to see for myself the human who has caused such disruption in our carefully maintained system. Happy to oblige, Reeve said dryly. You misunderstand, Draven continued, moving about the quarters with precise, measured steps. I am not here merely to observe. I am here to offer you a choice. What kind of choice? Draven stopped, fixing those unsettling white eyes on Reeve. Enhancement. The finest genetic and cybernetic modifications available. Not the crude augmentations offered to common gladiators, but elite-level improvements that would give you a fighting chance against Kajul. Reeve's surprise must have shown on his face, because Draven continued. Your value as a spectacle has exceeded all projections. The gambling pools for your match with Kajul have reached unprecedented levels. The Directorate has a vested interest in making the contest competitive. And if I refuse? Reeve asked, though he already knew his answer. Then you face the champion as you are, a fragile, unmodified human with virtually no chance of survival. Draven's tone was matter-of-fact, without malice. The choice is yours. Reeve didn't hesitate. I refuse. If I face Kajul, I do so as a human, not as some modified weapon. Draven studied him silently for a moment. Interesting. Kajul predicted you would say exactly that. Did he now? Reeve said. And what else did the great champion predict? That your refusal would be based not on fear of modification, but on principle. Draven moved toward the exit. He understands you better than you might think. Human. Perhaps better than you understand yourself. After Draven left, Reeve sat alone. Considering this new information, Kajul was not just studying him as an opponent, but trying to understand his motivations, his principles. It confirmed what Reeve had begun to suspect. The champion saw something in him that others missed. Not just a novel opponent, but perhaps something more. The day of the Solstice Festival arrived with great fanfare. The entire city surrounding the luminous arena was decorated with elaborate light displays and holographic projections celebrating 2,000 years of arena tradition. Spectators from across the galaxy had arrived in their millions, filling not just the arena itself, but overflow venues throughout the city. Reeve was escorted from his quarters by a full honor guard, a privilege normally reserved for established champions. As they led him through corridors he had never seen before, he caught glimpses of the scale of the operation that kept the luminous arena functioning. Thousands of support staff, advanced technology monitoring every aspect of the spectacle. Security measures that would put most military installations to shame. Finally, they arrived at a preparation chamber more elaborate than any he had seen. The walls were covered with ancient murals depicting arena battles from millennia past. In the center stood a weapons display containing a single item, a straight-bladed sword of simple, elegant design. Xylith was waiting, its usual clinical demeanor replaced by something approaching excitement. The ancestral blade, it explained, gesturing to the sword. A symbolic weapon, offered only to those deemed worthy to challenge the champion directly. It has been 200 years since it was last used. Reeve approached the display, studying the weapon. The blade was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The hilt was wrapped in a material that looked like leather, but felt smoother, more resilient. It is perfectly balanced for human physiology. Xylith continued. A coincidence, or perhaps evidence that your species once participated in arena culture before recorded history. Either way, it is yours for the combat. Reeve lifted the blade, testing its weight and balance. It felt like an extension of his arm, responsive and natural. Where will the match take place? The Celestial Arena, Xylith replied with reverence. The oldest and most sacred combat space in the complex, used only for challenges to the champion and only during the Solstice Festival, when the 3 moons align. A deep tone resonated through the chamber, like a massive bell being struck. Xylith straightened. It is time. The moons have aligned. The champion awaits. Reeve took a deep breath, centering himself. This was it, the culmination of everything since his capture. Win or lose, live or die. What happened next would echo far beyond this day. He followed Xylith through a series of increasingly ancient corridors, the modern technology of the arena giving way to stone passageways that looked thousands of years old. The air grew cooler, charged with a strange energy that made the hair on Reeve's arms stand up. They emerged into a vast circular chamber unlike any arena Reeve had seen before, open to the sky. It was surrounded by tiered seating that rose at a steep angle, creating an intimate atmosphere despite its size. Every seat was filled, the crowd a sea of alien faces all focused on the combat floor. And at the center of that floor, waiting with inhuman stillness, was Kajul. The champion was even more imposing in person than in the recordings Reeve had studied. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, with grayish skin that seemed to shimmer with an internal energy. Kajul radiated power and absolute control. His armor was minimal, just shoulder plates and a chest harness that left his muscled torso mostly exposed. similar to what Rex had worn but more elaborate, inscribed with ancient symbols that pulsed with light. In one hand, Kajul held a weapon similar to Reeve's ancestral blade, but larger, more ornate. His eyes, solid black pools without iris or pupil, fixed on Reeve as he entered the arena. A hush fell over the crowd. The celestial arena had different rules than the regular combat spaces. No announcer, no elaborate introductions. The challenge spoke for itself. Reeve crossed the stone floor, ancestral blade held loosely at his side. When he reached the center, standing perhaps 3 meters from Kajul, he stopped. For a long moment, they simply regarded each other in silence. Then Kajul spoke, his voice deep and resonant, yet somehow empty of emotion. "Reeve Calder of Earth," he said in perfect Earth standard. "You have earned the right to face me." "I'm honored," Reeve replied evenly, though honor was not precisely what he felt. "Are you?" Kajul asked, head tilting slightly. "I wonder. You have shown reluctance in your previous matches, a distaste for our traditions. Yet here you stand, blade in hand. Not by choice," Reeve pointed out. "But since I'm here, I might as well make it count." Something flickered in those black eyes. Amusement, perhaps. "Indeed. And how do you intend to do that? You cannot defeat me through conventional means. You must know this." "Probably," Reeve acknowledged. "But I've been told I'm stubborn." "More than stubborn," Kajul said. "You are anomalous, an unenhanced being who has defeated 2 of my finest lieutenants, a warrior who refuses to kill when killing would benefit him. A paradox. Just a human trying to hold on to his humanity," Reeve said. "Something I suspect you wouldn't understand." Kajul was silent for a moment, studying Reeve with those bottomless eyes. "Perhaps I understand more than you think. 200 years provides ample time for reflection." Above them, the 3 moons of Aurelax had aligned perfectly, their combined light bathing the arena in a silvery glow. A single tone rang out, the signal for combat to begin. Kajul raised his blade in a formal salute. Reeve mirrored the gesture. Then, with a speed that defied comprehension, the champion attacked. Reeve barely got his blade up in time to deflect the first strike, the impact sending shockwaves up his arm. Kajul followed with a series of attacks so fast that they blurred together, forcing Reeve into a desperate defense. Within seconds, Reeve understood the vast gulf between Kajul and his lieutenants, where Rex had been powerful and Cora quick. Kajul was both and more, a perfect synthesis of strength, speed, and technique honed over centuries. It was like fighting a force of nature. Reeve retreated, using every defensive technique he knew just to avoid being cut down immediately. The ancestral blade seemed to respond to his need, moving almost with a will of its own to intercept Kajul's attacks. The crowd watched in hushed appreciation as the combat unfolded. This was not the crude spectacle of the regular arena matches, but something approaching art, a deadly dance between master and challenger. For several minutes, Reeve managed to defend himself, even landing a few counters that Kajul deflected easily. But he was tiring. While the champion showed no signs of exertion, it couldn't last. When the breakthrough came, it was devastating. Kajul feinted high, then changed direction mid-strike to come in low. Reeve's blade was out of position, unable to intercept. The champion's weapon sliced across Reeve's thigh, cutting deep. Reeve staggered, blood flowing freely from the wound. The crowd murmured in appreciation. First blood to Kajul, as everyone had expected. "Your resilience is admirable," Kajul said, stepping back slightly. But futile. You cannot win this contest. Reeve pressed a hand to his wounded thigh, trying to stem the bleeding. Winning isn't everything, he gasped. An interesting philosophy for a gladiator. Kajul observed. What matters more than victory? How you fight, Reeve replied. Why you fight, who you remain after the fighting is done. Something changed in Kajul's expression, a subtle shift, almost imperceptible. You speak of identity, of self, concepts I abandoned long ago. Did you abandon them? Reeve asked, or were they taken from you? Kajul attacked again, his movements somehow more intense, as if Reeve's words had struck a nerve. Reeve defended desperately, but another cut opened on his arm, then his shoulder. Blood flowed, strength ebbing. The champion was toying with him now, demonstrating his absolute superiority for the crowd's benefit. Each strike was precisely calculated to wound, but not kill, to prolong the spectacle. Reeve knew he couldn't continue this way. His original plan, to fight conventionally until an opportunity presented itself, wasn't working. Kajul was too skilled, too powerful. It was time for a different approach. The next time Kajul attacked, Reeve didn't try to defend. Instead, he stepped into the strike, allowing the champion's blade to pierce his side. The pain was blinding, but it achieved what Reeve wanted, bringing him inside Kajul's guard, close enough to implement his desperate gambit. Before the champion could react, Reeve dropped his own blade and locked his arms around Kajul in a wrestler's hold, one arm snaking around the throat in a classic chokehold. The crowd erupted in shock and confusion. This was not how arena combat was conducted, not a technique seen in centuries of formalized gladiatorial tradition. It was crude, primitive, effective. Kajul, for perhaps the first time in 200 years, was caught by surprise. He tried to break free, his superior strength working against Reeve's technique. But Reeve had positioned himself perfectly, using Kajul's own body structure against him, cutting off blood flow to the brain, a vulnerability shared by many humanoid species regardless of genetic enhancement. "What is this?" Kajul gasped, his voice strained as the chokehold tightened. "This," Reeve grunted through the pain of his own wounds, "is humanity, adaptability, desperation, survival at any cost." The champion struggled, but Reeve held on with every ounce of strength he possessed. Blood from his own wounds soaked them both, making his grip slippery, but still he maintained the hold. Seconds stretched into a minute. The crowd had fallen completely silent, watching in disbelief as the undefeated champion began to weaken in the arms of a wounded human. Kajul's movements became less coordinated as oxygen deprivation affected his brain. "You could have killed me already," Kajul observed, his voice barely audible. "Why don't you?" "Because death isn't the point," Reeve replied through gritted teeth. "Never was." Kajul's struggles weakened further. For the first time in 2 centuries of combat, the champion was facing defeat, not through superior strength or skill, but through a simple technique he had never encountered, had never needed to defend against. As Kajul's consciousness began to fade, he managed one final question. "What is the point?" Then, Reeve spoke directly into his ear, words meant only for the champion. Change, breaking the cycle, showing there's another way besides endless killing. Then, with Kajul on the verge of unconsciousness, Reeve released the hold and staggered back. The champion fell to his knees, gasping for breath, head hanging as he fought to remain conscious. The celestial arena was frozen in absolute silence. No one moved, no one spoke. The impossible had happened. Kajul, the undefeated god of combat, was kneeling in defeat before a bleeding, unenhanced human. Tradition demanded that Reeve now take up his blade and end the champion's life, claiming his title and position. The crowd waited for this expected conclusion. Instead, Reeve remained where he stood, making no move toward the fallen weapon. Blood continued to flow from his multiple wounds, pooling on the ancient stone beneath him. "Finish it!" Kajul said, his voice rough but regaining strength. "Take your victory!" "No," Reeve replied, loud enough for his voice to carry throughout the arena. "This ends now, not with more death, but with change." He turned slowly, addressing the thousands of spectators directly. "For centuries, you've watched beings kill each other for your entertainment. You've placed wagers on lives as if they were nothing more than game pieces. I refuse to participate any longer." A murmur ran through the crowd. Confusion, anger, uncertainty. "Kill him!" someone shouted. "Finish the champion! He's forfeiting his victory!" another called. Reeve continued, his voice growing stronger despite his weakening body. "I claim the ancient right of the victor, the right to name my prize." This silenced the crowd again. The right he invoked was indeed part of arena tradition. Though rarely claimed, most victors simply took the standard rewards of wealth and status. High above, in the curator's box, Draven stood. "Name your prize. Victor," he called, his voice amplified throughout the arena. Reeve drew himself up to his full height, ignoring the pain and blood loss. "Freedom. Not just for myself, but for every fighter held against their will in the luminous arena. Every prisoner, every captive forced to fight and die for entertainment. I claim their freedom as my prize." The response was immediate and chaotic. Shouts of protest, cries of outrage, confusion and disbelief. The arena directorate members in their special viewing box were on their feet, gesturing animatedly. Draven raised a hand for silence, which came slowly. "What you ask exceeds the traditional bounds of a victor's prize," he said carefully. "Oh, does it?" Reeve challenged. "Your own records state that a victor who defeats the champion may claim any reward within the power of the directorate to grant." "Are you saying the directorate doesn't have the power to release its own prisoners?" A tense silence followed as Draven conferred with other members of the directorate. The entire arena waited, the moment balanced on a knife's edge. From his kneeling position, Kajul began to laugh, a sound so unexpected, so incongruous, that it drew every eye. He rose slowly to his feet, those black eyes fixed on Reeve with something approaching admiration. 200 years, he said, his voice carrying clearly in the silence. 200 years I have fought in this arena. I have killed thousands, broken the strongest warriors from 100 worlds. And now, I am defeated by a human who refuses to take my life when it is his by right. He turned to address the directorate box. The human has won fairly. His prize is valid under our oldest laws. Will you honor those laws? Or does the luminous arena now abandon even the pretense of honor? It was a challenge that could not be ignored. The entire system of the arena was built on a foundation of tradition and formalized rules. To deny a legitimate victor's prize would undermine that foundation completely. After what seemed an eternity, Draven spoke again. The directorate acknowledges the human's victory and his right to claim a prize. The captive fighters of the luminous arena will be granted their freedom. A new sound filled the celestial arena then, not the roar of bloodlust that usually accompanied matches, but something more complex, Some spectators shouted in protest, others in approval. Many simply watched in stunned silence as centuries of tradition were overturned in a single moment. Reeve swayed on his feet, blood loss and exhaustion finally taking their toll. As his consciousness began to fade, he saw Kajul step toward him, not with aggression, but with something like respect. "You have changed everything," the former champion said quietly. "Whether for better or worse remains to be seen." Then darkness claimed Reeve, and he collapsed to the stone floor of the celestial arena, his blood mingling with the blood of countless gladiators who had died there over millennia. But unlike them, he had fallen not in death, but in victory. A victory not just for himself, but for all those forced to fight in a system built on suffering and spectacle. And Reeve awoke in a medical bay, surrounded by advanced technology working to repair his extensive injuries. For a moment, he thought he might be back on an Earth Coalition vessel, that perhaps his entire arena experience had been some elaborate hallucination. Then he saw Seelen sitting nearby, her yellow eyes watching him with concern. "You're alive," she said, relief evident in her gravelly voice. "The medical droids gave you a 30% chance at best." Reeve tried to speak, found his throat dry and raw. Seelen offered him water, which he drank gratefully. "Did it work?" he finally managed to ask. "Are the fighters being freed?" Seelen's expression was complex, part amazement, part worry. "Yes, the Directorate is honoring your prize, though not without conditions. Each fighter must agree not to seek vengeance against the arena or its patrons. Those who refuse remain imprisoned." "How many have accepted?" "Most," Seelen replied. "Some are still deciding. A few, like Vrex, have chosen to remain as paid combatants rather than return to worlds they barely remember." Reeve absorbed this information, feeling a mix of satisfaction and concern. "And Kajul? What happened to him?" "Gone," Seelen said. "He disappeared from the arena immediately after your match. No one knows where he went or why. There are rumors he's searching for something, or someone." Before Reeve could respond, the door to the medical bay slid open to admit Xylith, accompanied by 2 guards. The curator looked different somehow, less certain, more agitated. "The human awakens," Xylith observed. "Good. There are matters to discuss." Reeve tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through his still healing wounds. "I assume you're here about my departure." "Among other things," Xylith confirmed. "The Directorate has arranged transport for you back to Earth space as part of your prize. However, there are complications." "What kind of complications?" Seelen asked suspiciously. Xylith's multifaceted eyes flickered with colored light. "The humans' actions have had repercussions beyond the arena. News of what happened has spread throughout the galaxy. There are those who see it as an attack on cherished traditions. Others view it as the dawn of a new era. Either way, the human is now a symbol, which makes him both valuable and vulnerable." "You're worried someone might try to kill me," Reeve surmised. "Or use me for their own agenda." "Precisely," Xylith agreed. "The Directorate has therefore assigned protection for your journey home. A small team of former arena fighters who have chosen to serve as your escorts." Seelen straightened. "I volunteered to lead the team," she said to Reeve. "If you'll have me." Reeve looked at her with genuine appreciation. "I'd be honored. But what about you? Where will you go after?" "I've been thinking about that," Seelen replied. "There are thousands of freed fighters now, many with nowhere to go, no skills beyond combat. They need leadership, organization, someone to help them find a new purpose." And you're volunteering for that too, Reeve said. It wasn't a question. Seelan nodded. It seems like the right thing to do. Something I learned from watching you. Xylith made a sound that might have been impatience. Yes, very inspiring. Now, there is the matter of your departure. The medical droids estimate you will be fit for travel in 3 days. Until then, security has been doubled around this facility. After Xylith left, Reeve and Seelan sat in companionable silence for a while. Finally, Reeve asked the question that had been on his mind since he awakened. Was it worth it? All the fighting, the pain, the near-death experiences? Seelan considered this seriously. You freed thousands who had no hope of freedom. You changed a system that has existed for millennia. And you did it without becoming what they wanted you to become, a killer who values victory above all else. She met his eyes directly. Yes, I'd say it was worth it. Reeve nodded slowly. I hope you're right. 3 days later, Reeve stood on a landing platform at the edge of the city, watching as the transport that would take him home was prepared for departure. His wounds were mostly healed, though the medical droids warned he would carry the scars for life, badges of his time in the luminous arena. Seelan and a small team of former fighters, now his protection detail, waited nearby. The Marnathi warrior had embraced her new role with characteristic determination, already organizing resources and support for the freed gladiators. As Reeve prepared to board the transport, a final visitor arrived. Vrex, still bearing the faint bruise on its throat from their first encounter, approached with measured steps. Human, it said by way of greeting. You leave us. Time to go home, Reeve replied simply. Vrex nodded. I have chosen to remain. The arena is what I know, what I am. You could be more, Reeve suggested. There's a whole galaxy out there. Perhaps someday, Vrex acknowledged. For now, I watch as the arena changes. Already, they speak of new rules, combatants who fight by choice, for payment, matches that end with surrender rather than death. Your legacy. Reeve hadn't expected this. That's good to hear. I bring a message, Rex continued, from Kajul. Reeve tensed slightly. What does the former champion have to say? He said to tell you this. 200 years of emptiness, ended by a moment of clarity. The debt can never be repaid, but it is acknowledged. Vrex paused. I do not understand his meaning. I think I do, Reeve said, quietly. In that final moment in the celestial arena, when he had whispered in Kajul's ear about breaking the cycle, something had connected between them, an understanding that transcended their roles as champion and challenger. He also left this for you, Vrex added, extending a small object wrapped in cloth. Reeve unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a medallion of some dark metal, inscribed with the same symbols that had adorned Kajul's armor, ancient glyphs that pulsed faintly with inner light. What does it mean? Reeve asked. It is the mark of the champion, Vrex explained, passed down from one arena master to the next since the beginning. Kajul has carried it for 2 centuries. Now it is yours. Reeve stared at the medallion, feeling its weight, not just physical, but symbolic. I'm not staying to be champion. He knew you would say that. Vrex replied. The message continues. The true champion is not the one who kills the most, but the one who changes the game. Keep it as a reminder that even the oldest systems can be broken by one who refuses to break. Reeve closed his hand around the medallion, feeling its subtle warmth against his palm. He nodded to Vrex. Tell him, Tell him I understand, and that I hope he finds whatever he's looking for. As the transport lifted off, carrying Reeve away from the luminous arena and toward home, he stood at a viewport, watching the ancient Colosseum recede in the distance. The medallion was still in his hand, a tangible reminder of everything he had experienced, everything he had changed. Beside him, Salin watched as well, her yellow eyes reflecting the lights of the city below. "What will you do when you get home?" she asked. Reeve considered the question. He had been a soldier for most of his adult life, fighting other people's battles. Now, for the first time, he had fought for something he truly believed in, and won. "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but I think it will involve helping others find freedom. There are arenas everywhere. Sealan, some with walls and weapons, others more subtle but no less confining." "Sounds like a worthy fight," she observed. Reeve nodded, his gaze still on the luminous arena as it diminished to a speck beneath them. "The worthiest." As the transport broke atmosphere and accelerated toward the stars, Reeve thought about Kajul, a being created for combat, who had known nothing but victory for 2 centuries, now facing an entirely new existence. He thought about the thousands of freed fighters now navigating their own paths to new lives, and he thought about himself, forever changed by his time in the arena, carrying physical and mental scars that would never completely heal. But some changes were worth the scars they left behind. Some battles needed to be fought, even at great cost. And sometimes, the greatest victory wasn't defeating an opponent, but refusing to become what others expected you to be. Reeve Calder, the unbroken human who had changed the luminous arena forever, turned his gaze toward Earth and the future that awaited him there, a future shaped not by what he had destroyed, but by what he had refused to destroy: his own humanity.